Welcome back. So, in the last couple weeks, SoundHound, being one of my favorite companies, has taken a significant sell off from its all time high. As you know, year to date, it is down almost 25%. But that's nothing I'm really too worried about. What I'm more concerned about is what SoundHound has been doing to implement further strategies for vertical integrations and what type of partnerships they've been making, which I'll discuss later. And I do believe that this company has a lot of potential. They've definitely proved themselves in the last year, as we can see here. They outperformed the S&P, they outperformed a lot of other tech stocks, and I'm just going to continue to hold. I've been holding this stock since, I believe, middle of 2023, so for a while now. And for the longest time, I thought to myself, I need to have a lot of conviction for a company like SoundHound, given that they're a smaller company. They haven't really, I don't want to say accomplished much yet, but they're kind of like a sleeper stock. They're tapping into different industries, and you know what, the return is probably going to come sooner than later, but we're going to have to be patient since they're a newer company and whatnot, and they have a lot to prove in the AI voice recognition industry. So my strategy as of right now, right, is just loading up more shares, basically just dollar cost averaging. As we've seen, it capped out at around $25 a share back in December, and then it took a pretty significant sell off, averaging almost 25% sell off since literally a month ago. And since then, I've been writing covered calls to, accrue a little bit of additional income as well as other types of stocks. And then those covered call profits are basically reinvested into different types of shares. And a majority here that I've been putting back into SoundHound. Um, One thing I do want to mention is that looking at a stock like SoundHound, or company, I should say, is that, when I'm selling covered calls, I try to be a little bit more conservative because a stock like SoundHound can grow extremely quick with, the smallest type of news. And I'll talk about this later, but as we've seen in the last year and a half, SoundHound has risen tremendously in literally a 1 week time frame. So it's a slight concern given that if I were to write covered calls, I'm not going to write covered calls on all 1,500 of my shares. I'm going to write them on a few hundred shares because if I get called and SoundHound decides to go up past the strike that I'm selling and my shares get sold at, per se $20 a share, as you can see here, I wouldn't really be too bothered that my shares sold at $20 a share, right? Because you're looking at 100 shares sold at $20 a share. And I wouldn't put all my eggs in that basket. So I am smart enough to do that. And while I am seeing what I consider a small amount, right, of covered call premium being accrued, just know that I am reinvesting this back into the stock itself. And it's not much, but it's honest work. So for the time being, though, the average cost is looking pretty good. It used to be lower. It used to be about $3 to $5 a share. And the moment it just started growing extremely quick, I really wanted to, I guess you could call it dollar cost average, the amount of equity that I was putting in before it skyrocketed. And then all of a sudden it basically leveled out again for investors to digest what was further going on with the stock. And it did get hit with a lot of the other AI stocks when they had that huge run up at the end of December. And then all of a sudden it just kind of, I don't want to say tanked, but it had a huge sell off about a month later. One thing that I will be honest about is that I don't usually look at the charts, right, when I'm looking at stocks and what I'm purchasing. What I do have to say is that when I was buying SoundHound, I'd look at typically the RSI, right? And I'd look at it and go, okay, it does look like it's very undersold and whatnot. And then when it would start to gain a lot of momentum and it would basically top out, I'd basically hold off from selling and I would sell covered calls. And of course, the stock would start to cool off a little bit and whatnot. And then I thought it was a pretty good strategy and it remained pretty relatively um, you know, neutral for the most part for a pretty long period of time before it broke out again and then became extremely overvalued. And it was a great time to write covered calls because when it sold off again, a lot of those calls obviously expired worthless, and the implied volatility was pretty high. I think it was something like between 80 and 90%, and it was crazy. Now, I didn't accrue like hundreds and thousands of dollars worth of covered call premiums, but I accrued enough to reinvest into however many shares here and there. And it is humbling, right? Just looking at a stock that has accrued over 800%, year over year, because a lot of stocks cannot perform that well. And well, SoundHound has a lot to prove. And I don't want to put all my eggs in one basket, But looking at SoundHound, I think they have a lot that they could provide to the general atmosphere of the AI voice recognition industry. And I think they're only going to go up from here once they I think they pretty much stabilize where they are now. I was thinking to myself as well, do I want to open up any more positions with other AI stocks, which have done pretty well in the last, couple years? If we want to take a look at year over year for a lot of these stocks, these AI stocks have done extremely well. The only concern is what types of these AI stocks are going to be performing and actually um, providing, right, the necessary outcome of what investors want when it comes to this AI race. And SoundHound is kind of like in its own atmosphere, if that makes sense. They provide the AI voice recognition and they're tapping into a multitude of industries that a lot of people are not even aware about. Whether it's the car industry and the voice recognition, the healthcare industry, which a lot of people are not aware about, and they provide a lot of their services, in the food franchise industry, which I mentioned in a couple of videos ago. And ironically enough, which little backstory, when I was in Texas, I was eating at a taco place called Torchy's. And fast forward a month later, SoundHound announced that they were doing like a partnership with Torchy's to implement all their AI technology into like their drive-through ordering systems. And I thought that was quite literally not a coincidence, given how much of a supporter I am with this company. And I said, you know what, Torchy's, I thought it was just a small restaurant. It turns out it's a giant chain that I think they have like 150 plus locations. And ever since that, it's caught a lot of headwind, which is a good thing. But looking at a lot of these other AI stocks, I'm gonna be honest, I haven't really researched a lot of these. I know that Rigetti, that one slipped by me at 60 cents a share, and I'll be honest in that sense. Big Bear AI, that one slipped past me at $2 a share. But I focus a lot of my my research and my money towards SoundHound because I researched the leadership, I researched their partnerships, and I can't really find anything wrong with them aside from the fact that their company isn't quite profitable yet. If I'm not mistaken, their PE ratio it's still negative. But with growing companies like this, I don't think that's a really big issue. And you might disagree, but there were a lot of companies that we saw that used to be negative, priced as negative, and then they became positive and they performed extremely well. Tesla was a perfect example. So I look at SoundHound and I'm thinking to myself, what type of partnership or what type of catalyst are they going to, basically hit us with next, to where it's going to allow this stock to break into like the $20 range and it's going to hold steady from there. It's going to be very steady. It's going to have that level of support that we want. And it's really hard to say because these people get paid a lot more than I do to basically research things that they research in this sector. I haven't seen many price targets in the last few months with this stock, and it's not concerning to me because the price targets, they come, they go, and you have individual analysts and then you have firms that'll give their price target. When I look at SoundHound, think about it like this: it's not a very very well known stock, like Nvidia, Apple, or Google are, and they're not getting their price target, analyzed by, all these large entities, right? That usually can tear down tech stocks or whatever with literally like one price target that might be lower than what it was before. And it's only a matter of time before SoundHound becomes more recognized and it becomes more recognized by other entities and firms that want to invest in this stock, and they'll say, hey, I want to give SoundHound like a $17 price target or maybe a $15.50 price target or a $20 plus price target. But I do know that like the highest price target that I've seen here, obviously $26, and that was quite literally like at near its all-time high. And then the lowest price target obviously is $6 a share. Now, it's kind of hard to say nowadays, how analysts come up with their final conclusion on why they think, their consensus in terms of why they would price a stock a certain way, looking at its financials and the technical analysis and whatnot, what they have to provide to their current industry, product or service wise. But I think that $6 is priced too low. I think 15, 25. Well, when it sold off and I looked at the relative strength index and it kept sinking and sinking, it didn't quite bottom out yet. I said, I want to say that it's going to bottom out between $12 and $14. And it bottomed out around $12 a share, thank God. And then it rebounded. And now it seems to be holding steady around $15, which is fantastic. And, SoundHound's coming up with a lot of great news, and they are not really letting the negatives get to them, which is a fantastic thing. They're pushing forward, and they're just coming up with more and more things that's helping with their integration into what they're providing in the industries that they're providing. One thing for sure, though, and this is old news, but Rekor Systems, they're a leader in developing and implementing state-of-the-art roadway intelligence technology. And they announced a while ago, a few weeks ago, that they're working with SoundHound AI to basically transform emergency vehicle technology. This is something that I never would have thought because emergency vehicles, right? And it makes a lot of sense. You've had SoundHound tap into the healthcare industry, the car industry, um, just a bunch of different industries, food franchise. And I never would have thought that they would tap into emergency vehicles. And it makes sense because if you're getting this AI implemented, right, in emergency vehicles, which, whether they're state or federally funded, um, a lot of that money is basically just flowing in at that point, and it's great. So this partnership was announced, right, by Breakout Systems with SoundHound AI partnership and their collaboration to enhance emergency vehicle technology. And I'm hoping from this takeaway here is that it will promote, more headwind for SoundHound, and it will promote, the need for their technology for emergencies and whatnot. Now, from what I understand, this Record Scout part of this technology integration is a type of vehicle recognition software, and it's combined with SoundHound's advanced voice and conversational AI. And I think this is very important because conversational AI, I think, is much more important than just regular AI that gives you an answer. If you can converse with something and it can think possibly creatively and it can converse with you back and forth, maybe it could provide an answer that, you know, can come out of the conversation that maybe we didn't really think about in a sense. But it provides hands-free control over various vehicle functions, which is absolutely insane. Can't even begin to explain how that would work, but you do have to admit that is very impressive. And then we have a bunch of other things here that I'm going to go over, like primary goals, right? Enhancing safety and efficiency for law enforcement and first responders by introducing voice alerts for immediate and actionable notifications. This is very important, right? Emergency vehicles, whether you're a first responder or whatnot, there needs to be an immediate notification in order to be alerted for whatever. And usually, if you're like an individual alerting one of your colleagues in an emergency situation, it only goes so far. Maybe because you don't know exactly what to say, or the thing that you're saying doesn't register completely to that colleague of yours. And then you get a voice alert for this AI technology, and it gives an immediate and actionable notification. And it's just, you're going to eventually be groomed to listen for that voice alert. So to me, I'm going to be basically anticipating a voice alert if there is, an immediate emergency and I need to take, basically a measure like as soon as possible. And of course, which is pretty cool, is that there's a hands-free operation of vehicle systems like ALPR, sirens, lights, and more. And then basically, my question about all of this, right? Like, who is the target audience? So, right now, this is initially focused on police vehicles, and their plans are to expand to other emergency services like fire trucks and ambulances. So, it's great that they're implementing this in police vehicles because police respond to a lot of emergency calls and whatnot, and they need this AI integrated technology to be able to assist them to make things more convenient. I'm not saying they can't do their job without it, but it makes things 1,000 times easier, especially when stress is running through your brain at Mach 7 and you have a million other things in your mind that you're trying to focus, right? You're trying to anticipate or solve in your brain before you head into that emergency area. And it's very good to know that the plans are to expand to other emergency services like the fire trucks and ambulances is amazing because I think this is going to be a huge move. It's not just first responders like, hey, police vehicles, it's fire trucks and ambulances. So it kind of makes me wonder what will be implemented in terms of this technology next. Like, will it be implemented in other types of emergency vehicles that are not ambulances, fire trucks, or police vehicles, right? It's kind of hard to say, but time will tell, you know. And of course, it has integration with mobile data terminals for hands-free data access, queries, and report dictation. This is something that I know that can be very confusing. Report dictation. Certain things, like when you have to access data and you have to use your fingers, you have to type, sometimes you're very limited. And if you're under a lot of pressure, you're not typing how you should normally be typing, or maybe you just would rather speak because sometimes your motor vehicles change and whatnot, and they don't operate how they should. So it's good that they're implementing these functional enhancements, right, to make things easier. The bottom line is most of these things that are introduced, right, to these emergency vehicles and these first responders are convenience. I don't want to say it's a crutch. It's more of a convenience, right? It's making things easier. It's allowing them to do their job more efficiently, and operate, in a more precise way. And another thing too, like kind of like what I mentioned earlier, right, with distractions or whatnot being stressed, it's going to be implemented with natural language processing for more intuitive interaction, reducing distractions. If you're a first responder and you're driving through the streets and lights and sirens are on and you're not focused or whatnot, that's not good because there could be collateral damage. You could accidentally hit a civilian, you could accidentally hit a person crossing the road. And you need to limit those distractions, right? So if you have this language processing speaking for you and basically, allowing things to run a lot more smoothly, then it's going to reduce distractions. It's going to allow you to possibly drive a lot easier, focus more on the road. And as of right now, this is being aimed at basically they're trying to produce, on average, there's 100,000 police vehicles that are purchased annually in the United States. And that is insane to me. I wasn't aware of this number. That's a pretty big number. And if it's purchased annually, what is it going to be down the road? Are they going to increase that number? Are they going to only implement the AI technology in certain counties or states? Maybe due to like budget concerns, because that's a very important thing. So there's the question there. And then we have the fact that, utilizing existing high resolution cameras in modern vehicles, negating the need for additional hardware. That is something that has always been very controversial, right? Because cameras and the material that they capture has always been the controversial topic of, is it clear enough on video? Is that footage captured on the camera admissible in court and whatnot? Can it be used? Is it reliable? So cameras are improving literally every 6 months, every single year. And if we're able to utilize this, right, high resolution camera in modern vehicles, I feel like it's going to basically simplify things and make things more efficient. So, things would be able to operate more, efficiently and whatnot. And of course, this partnership positions both companies to lead in setting new standards for law enforcement technology globally. Keyword, globally. And this is something that I read through this whole entire article like 5 times. And to me, one thing that really caught my eye was the fact that they said globally, because it's only a matter of time before SoundHound expands, right? Just out of the States, and it expands globally. They already do operate, right, out of the country. But I'd like to see SoundHound implemented into emergency vehicles in other countries like Korea, Japan, or Europe even. I do think that's only a matter of time before they're, basically they rub off and they get enough headwind to be implemented, or they get a partnership with other countries in their emergency vehicles to be able to do something like this. And this is the goal, right? To get enough clout, in a sense, to be accepted and to work with them. And you're talking about an AI voice recognition company that can already, decipher and translate languages and different types of tongues, right? In different types of languages. Not all languages are the same. They have different types of dialects and tongues. And if they can do that and implement that in other countries, I think that's going to be an absolute huge win, right? Globally. That's the key word here. And, of course, the man, Caven, he's doing everything right, right? As the CEO, I don't think he's doing anything wrong. He's doing everything in the best interest for the company. Bottom line is, I think that we're due for, another breakout. I mean, quite a few people I've spoken to don't really think so. They think that right now is kind of in a restful period, right? As it just sold off a month ago, and people think that, oh, SoundHound needs a moment to kind of like, digest the sell off and whatnot, restabilize, gain that support. I think that SoundHound is doing everything it possibly can to grow and to show the capability that its growth cannot be contained. So, on that, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know your thoughts below. And as always, I will talk to you guys next time. Take care.